Democrats were hoping this year would be the one that they turned Texas into a purple state, but GOP victories across the state further cemented the party's 28-year grasp. Governor Greg Abbott took to Twitter on Tuesday, writing, quote, "Tonight, Texans sent a message that they want to keep the Lone Star State the beacon of opportunity that we have provided over the past 8 years."
Voters didn't just cast their ballots for candidates, but rather the issues they care about. Key policies on abortion, border security, and legalizing marijuana were just a few issues that drove Texans to the polls. Here to talk about the outcome of these races and the role Texas could play in the 2024 presidential contest is managing editor for news and politics of the Texas Tribune, Matthew Watkins. Matthew, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
So this gap between some of the progressive issues, ballot measures that folks have voted on across the country, and the Republican grasp on some of the states where those ballot measures passed, places like Kansas, places like Florida, places like Texas, is fascinating to me. And I wonder what you make of it and whether or not you think the GOP is going to start embracing some of those policies substantively to really cement their hold on these areas.
Yeah, I think Texas is a place where obviously you can't put abortion directly on the ballot in the way you can in some other states, and as we've seen. And what that has meant, I think, has largely been a good thing for Republicans, because we saw in the polls even before the election that there's a group of people who consider abortion the most important issue in an election, but that actually ranked lower than a lot of different issues, such as the economy, inflation, even guns in Texas ranked higher in the kind of listings of the most important issues. And so what you found was a majority of Texans do support some sort of abortion rights, but it wasn't enough to swing the entire political dynamic in the state. And Republicans, we even saw really about a quarter, according to some exit polls, of people who say they support abortion rights still voting for Greg Abbott in the governor's election, the Republican candidate.
Yeah, O'Rourke has made this go of it, several times in various contexts now, and was very much celebrated or platformed at a national level on magazine profiles. He felt confident enough to even make the run for president. Another defeat for without any track record of actually pulling off the wins in these elections. Does his future hold anything at this point?
Yeah, it's a really good question. This is the third time he's run for office in the last 4 years. He ran for Senate in 2018. He, of course, then ran for president, as you mentioned, and then he lost this race as well. That's 3 straight losses. The first race went pretty well. He came very close to defeating Ted Cruz, lost by less than 3 percentage points. The last 2 races, not as well, and it does seem like some of the shine has worn off. But I wouldn't expect him to completely disappear. Will he run again? It's hard to say. I doubt he will anytime soon, but I think he'll continue to be a presence in Texas politics, continue his push to turn Texas blue, and continue to be someone that Democrats in this state turn to as someone they know can energize their voters, raise money, and do other things that this party needs to do if it wants to have a future in this state, competitively.
We've been talking a lot about Mayra Flores in the context of the Latino vote, and it seemed like she was a bellwether for Republicans' success with that demographic group. Of course, she's now lost her race. Can you provide any insight into what you think happened there?
Yeah, that was a race where that was going to be a tough win for Republicans. The district voted pretty heavily for Biden or would have voted if it had been a district at that time in 2020. It was a newly redistricted race. And so I don't think it's a big shock that she lost. The margin that she lost is obviously a big disappointment for Republicans. But what they did do is they continued to kind of hold the improvements that they made in South Texas in 2022. They didn't build on them. They didn't, add a net number of seats. But the kind of complete Democratic dominance in South Texas, a heavily Hispanic region, was still not there this time around. And I think that's a sign of that something that Democrats need to be concerned about moving forward.
What about Greg Abbott's, let's talk about his policies. He's been a very, like DeSantis, kind of national Republican, very conservative, kind of textbook, extremely conservative political positions that he's taking, that he's articulating. that's working for him in Texas. Does he have a chance at a greater national profile moving forward?
I think that's the question that a lot of people are asking right now, and it's really hard to say. Of course, we know that it's very possible, maybe likely, that President Trump will enter the race soon. But I think if you look at Abbott, maybe with the exception of DeSantis, it's hard to find a Republican who had a better night on Tuesday night. Across the country, the message was maybe falling short of expectations for the Republican Party. But Abbott, I think, surprised people with that double-digit margin of victory last night. And I think he can make a compelling case of saying, I have these conservative policies that the Republican Party wants, but I don't have the drama of a Trump-like figure or some of the other Trump-endorsed candidates he saw around the country who maybe fell short of expectations. And that could be his case. But DeSantis is obviously a big looming figure, and Trump is a big looming figure. And I do think there's still a big challenge for him if he wanted to, say, run for president, that he would have to overcome those. And, I think it's a very big question as to whether he could.
I mean, another pitch that I see conservatives making, some of these more less Trump-aligned conservatives, I should say, making that Democrats don't seem to be paying that much attention to is the idea that they preside over states that are very welcoming to businesses, that have good standards of living, that make it easy for you to, build where you'd want without the zoning restrictions, and basically the more unregulated environments being good for commerce. You hear that a lot out of Texas politicians, Florida, and I heard that a lot out of Kari Lake as well. Do you see that as driving some of the appeal of the conservative candidates in these areas? And do you agree that you haven't seen much in the way of a rejoinder from Democrats?
Yeah, I would. I mean, I think that the Texas economy is strong compared to the rest of the country. That has been true for quite a few years. And that is something that Abbott has really touted and talked about. And it is something that the Democrats didn't have a lot of good answers for. If you were in Texas and you were watching the political ads coming across the screen in the run up to this election, it was a lot of advertisements trying to pin Beto O'Rourke to Biden over issues like gas prices and inflation and things like that. That is really where Abbott wanted the conversation to be and seemed to be successful in making that case. The other thing is immigration, though. He has really hit Biden hard on immigration through the migrant busing, through other efforts to secure the border, taking things into Texas's own hands. And that is another area where I don't think the Democrats have a lot of great answers other than criticizing what the Republicans are doing. And I think a message has been sent from voters, at least in Texas and maybe elsewhere, that just saying this isn't a problem or trying to kind of whistle past the problem is not a great solution for Democrats moving forward when you talk about the economy, when you talk about the border and things like that.
Very interesting. Matthew, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Next week on Rising, Andrew Yang will join us. We'll get into everything midterms with the leader of the Forward Party. You won't want to miss that or any of our other post-election coverage. We'll finally get some answers on Arizona, Nevada. Hopefully, fingers crossed. We'll be back, same time, same place. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe so you never miss any content. And for those of you who prefer to listen while on the go, we are now available anywhere you listen to podcasts. All right, bye-bye. Thanks for sticking with us this week. See you later.